Hello, Your Honor. My name is Michael Ryan, and I'm one of the lead fire investigators for South Metro Fire Rescue. I'm here today to ask that some evidence be admitted for a fire that recently happened in our district. I'm going to first go through the kind of timeline as to what happened that day, and then hopefully at the end of this we can agree that the evidence that was found should be admissible. At approximately 1:17 in the afternoon, crews were dispatched to a residential structure fire, and we had Engine 42, Engine 22, Tower 35, Rescue 42, and Battalion 5 responding. They arrived on scene approximately 8 minutes after dispatch time to a structure that was on fire, and they took their actions to force entry into that building, go inside, extinguish the fire, and then once they were inside and doing their primary search or their search and rescue for victims, they were notified by the homeowners who arrived on scene that there was nobody home, and they stopped that search. At approximately 1:40 in the afternoon, the fire was deemed under control by the battalion chief, and they requested my response as an investigator, which is per policy. My dispatch time that I told dispatch was approximately 45 to 60 minutes. I arrived on scene 40 minutes later. When I arrived on scene, the crew that was there the crew that was there that fought the fire had already left, and that is pretty unusual. I went back and found out why that was the case, and while they were cleaning up their hoses and reloading their truck, there was a reported structure fire 3 blocks away from that structure fire, and with parties trapped. That's a big red flag when you hear parties trapped initially on a dispatch like that. So those crews acted quickly, they acted swiftly, and they did so by cleaning up their hose quickly and putting their tools back on their truck, and they responded to that structure fire to fight that fire and do the search for those 3 children that were reported missing. Again, I will admit that is unusual to leave the scene unsecured, but in this case, as you can imagine, it was necessary. I arrived, as I said, at about 40 minutes after they requested my service to do the investigation, and that was at approximately 2:35 is when I arrived on scene. So just over an hour and 18 minutes after the initial response and initial call for fire service, I responded and was on scene doing my investigation. When I got on scene, the homeowners were no longer there. The scene was completely empty, so I conducted my investigation as normal. The reason why the homeowner and their attorneys are asking for this evidence that I found during the investigation to be dismissed is because the scene was left unsecured, and they are now claiming that a warrant would need to be issued for me to re-enter the property. As stated in Michigan versus Tyler, firefighters have a reasonable amount of time to investigate the cause and origin of a fire, and I would argue that an hour and 18 minutes from the time that was dispatched is a reasonable amount of time. I do, and I will admit the fact that our crews were not on scene when I arrived is unusual, but the circumstances that happened that day with the fire only 3 blocks away and them responding to it to do their duty should be sufficient enough cause for that to be that scene to be unsecured and no longer occupied by the fire department prior to my arrival. Some of the information that I'd like to submit to you is the timeline that of the call that day, and this gives you a breakdown of the timeline of rigs being dispatched, and how it was under control at the time, and the time also when I was dispatched. Your Honor, I hope this is enough information for you to admit those findings during my investigation, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.